I stood there, my hands trembling as I held my husband's phone, 38 years of marriage crumbling with a single text message. Miriam is too old, not attractive like you. My heart shattered into a million pieces as I read the words that would forever change my life. Let me know where you're watching from today, and if you're new here, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to join our growing community. My name is Miriam Hawthorne, and at 61 years old, I never imagined I'd be in this position. For nearly 4 decades, I had been the devoted wife to Donovan Hawthorne, supporting him as he built his business empire in California. We lived what most would consider a dream life in Beverly Hills, with 2 successful children, Jasper and Celeste, and everything money could buy. But beneath the surface of our perfect life, my world was about to implode. The morning had started like any other. I woke up early, made Donovan's favorite breakfast, Eggs Benedict with freshly squeezed orange juice, and kissed him goodbye as he left for work. Our routine had been the same for decades, a comfortable rhythm that I thought would carry us through our golden years. How wrong I was. Donovan had always been passionate about classic cars. His collection was legendary among car enthusiasts, featuring pristine examples of American muscle cars, vintage European sports cars, and rare prototypes worth millions. I had supported this passion from the beginning, even using my inheritance to help him acquire his first collectible, a 1965 Shelby Cobra. When we were just starting out, I remembered that day vividly. Both of us giddy with excitement as we signed the papers, dreaming of the collection we would build together. Over the years, that collection grew to include some of the rarest vehicles in the world, a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO, valued at over $50 million, a 1955 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL, Gullwing, a 1967 Shelby, GT500, and dozens of other automotive masterpieces. Each car had a story, and I knew them all because I had been there for every acquisition, every restoration, every car show. The signs of trouble had been there for months, but I had chosen to ignore them. Donovan started coming home later, his shirts carrying unfamiliar perfume. He joined an exclusive gym downtown, bought trendy clothes that looked ridiculous on a man his age, and became obsessed with his appearance. He started dyeing his gray hair, whitening his teeth, and even considered plastic surgery. "You should join the gym with me," he said one evening, eyeing me critically. It wouldn't hurt to lose a few pounds. I was stunned. I had maintained my figure reasonably well over the years, and while I wasn't the size 6 I had been when we married, I was healthy and active. His comment stung, but I brushed it off as midlife crisis, anxiety. When I questioned these changes, he brushed me off, saying he was going through a midlife renaissance. He started criticizing everything about our life together. Our home was too traditional, our friends were boring, and our routine was suffocating. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, his favorite pot roast with roasted vegetables, Donovan's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen. The message preview showed a photo of a young woman in a bikini. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. The passcode hadn't changed. It was still our wedding anniversary. What I found destroyed me. Messages between Donovan and someone named Brielle Navarro, a 29-year-old fitness instructor from his new gym. The messages were explicit, filled with plans and promises. Photos of her in various states of undress, his responses full of desire and admiration. But it was one particular exchange that burned into my mind. Brielle, when are you going to leave her? Donovan, soon. I can't stand being around someone so old and boring. You make me feel alive again. Brielle, she doesn't deserve you. You need someone young and exciting. Donovan. Exactly. Miriam is stuck in the past. She's let herself go. Nothing like you, baby. Brielle. I can't wait to move into that big house. We'll redecorate everything. Donovan. Whatever you want, it'll be all yours soon. I scrolled through months of messages, each one more painful than the last. They had been meeting at hotels, taking weekend trips, planning a future together. He had promised her jewelry cars, a life of luxury. All funded by the wealth we had built together. I couldn't breathe. This man whom I had devoted my life to had reduced our entire marriage to a cruel joke. I had raised our children, managed our household, entertained his business associates, and invested my family's money to help build his empire. And now I was old and boring. The pot roast burned as I sat at the kitchen table reading message after message. By the time Donovan came home, the house was filled with smoke and I was numb with shock. "What's burning?" he asked irritably, waving away the smoke. I looked up at him. This man I had loved for 38 years, and saw a stranger. "Our marriage," I replied quietly. That night when I confronted him with his phone in my hand, he didn't even try to deny it. His reaction was worse than any denial could have been. He seemed relieved. "Yes, I'm seeing Brielle," he said with shocking casualness. "And yes, I want a divorce." "You're 61. Miriam, look at yourself. I need someone who matches my energy, someone young and vibrant." "I gave you everything." I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "My youth, my career, my inheritance. And I'm grateful," he interrupted. "But it's time to move on. I'll make sure you're taken care of, but I need to live my life." "Live your life," I repeated incredulously. "What have we been doing for the last 38 years?" "Existing," he said coldly. "Not living." "Brielle makes me feel young again. She understands me in ways you never could." "She understands your bank account," I shot back, finding my voice. "She's 29, Donovan. She's younger than our daughter." He shrugged. "Age is just a number. What matters is how someone makes you feel, and you. You make me feel old, Miriam. Every time I look at you, I'm reminded of my mortality." That night, he moved into the guest bedroom. The next morning, I found him packing his things, planning to move into his downtown penthouse, the one I had helped purchase as an investment property. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce," he said as casually as if discussing a business transaction. "We can make this quick and painless." "Painless." I laughed bitterly. "You just destroyed our family, and you think this can be painless?" He had the audacity to look annoyed. "Don't be dramatic, Miriam. We had a good run, but it's over. Accept it gracefully. If you're still here, let me know where you're watching from today." Don't forget to like and subscribe to support more content like this. For days, I wandered through our house in a daze. Every corner held memories. Our wedding photos, family vacations, holidays with the kids. How could 38 years mean so little to him? I barely ate or slept, consumed by a mixture of grief and rage. I called Jasper and Celeste, telling them what had happened. Their reactions were visceral. "I'll kill him," Jasper said, his voice shaking with rage. "How dare he do this to you?" Celeste was crying. "Mom, this is insane. Dad's lost his mind. That woman is my age." Their support was comforting, but it didn't ease the pain of betrayal. I spent hours looking at old photos, remembering the life we had built together. There was Donovan holding newborn Jasper, both of us crying with joy. Our 25th anniversary party, where he had given a speech about how I was his rock, his partner, his everything. Family vacations, birthday celebrations, quiet moments of intimacy, all of it now tainted by his betrayal. Friends began calling as news spread. Some offered sympathy, others shared their own stories of betrayal. My friend Sarah was particularly supportive. "Miriam, you need to fight," she said during one of her daily check-ins. "Don't let him discard you like this. You helped build everything he has." But I felt paralyzed, unsure of how to move forward. The thought of divorce terrified me. I had been Mrs. Donovan Hawthorne for so long. I wasn't sure who Miriam was anymore. Then one afternoon, while cleaning out my office, I found an old leather notebook, my financial diary from our early years. As I flipped through the pages, memories flooded back. Every penny we had scraped together, every investment decision, every sacrifice I had made. The entries were detailed, Used $50,000 from Dad's trust to secure business loan. Sold grandmother's jewelry to cover payroll. Maxed out credit cards for Donovan's first car auction. Emptied savings for down payment on Beverly Hills house. And there in my neat handwriting was the record of how I had used my inheritance to fund Donovan's first business venture and his precious car collection, the Ferrari 250 GTO. His crown jewel had been purchased entirely with money from my family trust. Something shifted inside me. The grief began to transform into determination. I wasn't going to be discarded like an old car that had lost its shine. I was going to fight. I called Sarah back. "You mentioned a lawyer." I said, "I'm ready." She gave me the number for Katerina Volkov, a Russian-American divorce attorney known for her ruthless efficiency. The moment I walked into her office, I knew I had found my champion. Katerina was in her early 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through people. Her office was minimalist but elegant, with a few carefully chosen pieces of art and a wall of legal books. "Tell me everything," she said, her slight accent adding gravity to her words. As I poured out my story, her expression grew increasingly focused. When I mentioned Donovan's car collection, her eyes lit up. "This collection," she said, leaning forward. "Tell me more about how it was acquired." I explained how we had started the collection together, how I had used my inheritance for the initial purchases, and how I had managed our finances to allow for subsequent acquisitions. I was the one who researched the cars negotiated with sellers, arranged for transportation and storage. I said, "Donovan just showed up for the auctions and signed the checks from accounts I had helped fund." "And is your name on any of the documentation?" she asked. "I'm not sure," I admitted. Donovan always handled the paperwork. He said it was easier that way for insurance purposes. Katerina smiled, a predatory expression that made me feel suddenly hopeful. "We need to investigate. Men like your husband often make mistakes when they think they're being clever." She assigned her team to dig into our finances. What they uncovered was shocking. Donovan had been systematically moving assets, preparing for divorce long before I found those messages he had created. Shell companies transferred titles and hidden bank accounts. "He's been planning this for at least a year," Katerina said, showing me the evidence. "But he's made several critical errors." Over the next few weeks, Katerina and her team uncovered a treasure trove of information. Not only had Donovan been hiding assets, but he had also been planning to transfer his car collection to a shell company before filing for divorce. Most shocking of all, he had secretly mortgaged our Beverly Hills home to cover some failed investments, something he had never told me about. "This changes everything," Katerina said, spreading documents across her desk. "He's committed financial fraud. The cars, the house, the hidden accounts. We can make a strong case that you're entitled to much more than a standard division of assets." She pointed to a document. "Look at this. The Ferrari 250 GTO was purchased with funds directly traceable to your inheritance. He put it in his name only, but the money trail is clear." "Can we prove all of this in court?" I asked. "Not only can we prove it," she smiled, "but we can also show a pattern of deception that will not sit well with any judge." My children were incredible during this time. Jasper, a lawyer himself, helped review documents. Celeste, who worked in tech, assisted in tracking down digital evidence of Donovan's deception. "Mom, look at this," Celeste said one evening, showing me her laptop. "Dad's been using company funds to pay for hotels and jewelry. That's embezzlement." The more we uncovered, the angrier I became. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a calculated attempt to leave me with nothing while he started a new life with his young girlfriend. Meanwhile, Donovan continued living in the penthouse, oblivious to our investigation. He had his lawyer send over divorce papers with what he considered a generous settlement. The house mortgaged to the hilt, a modest monthly alimony, and my personal belongings. The car collection, the business assets, the investment properties. All of that he planned to keep. I visited the penthouse one last time to collect some personal items. Donovan wasn't there, but evidence of Brielle was everywhere. Her clothes in the closet, her cosmetics in the bathroom, photos of them together on the refrigerator. On the coffee table, I found a notebook. Curious. I opened it. It was Brielle's wedding planner. She and Donovan were planning to marry as soon as our divorce was final. She had already chosen her dress, the venue, our country club, and the guest list, which included many of our mutual friends. The absolute audacity took my breath away. They were planning to step into the life I had built, as if I could be seamlessly replaced by a younger model. I photographed the pages with my phone. More evidence of their premeditation. The divorce proceedings began 3 months after that fateful night. Donovan arrived at court looking confident, Brielle conspicuously absent, but clearly influencing his decisions from afar. He had hired Maxwell Sterling, a high-profile divorce attorney known for protecting wealthy men's assets. Donovan's lawyer opened with what he clearly thought was a generous offer. My client is willing to provide Mrs. Hawthorne with the family home, a generous monthly alimony of $10,000, and her personal possessions. We believe this is more than fair considering the circumstances. Katerina's response was to begin methodically presenting evidence of Donovan's financial deception. Bank records showed how my inheritance had funded his early business ventures. Documentation proved that I had been instrumental in building our wealth. And most damaging of all, evidence of his attempts to hide assets and defraud me in the divorce. Your Honor, Katerina said we have evidence that Mr. Hawthorne has been systematically transferring assets in preparation for this divorce. He has created shell companies, hidden bank accounts, and attempted to transfer his valuable car collection to avoid proper division of assets. She presented document after document, the mortgage on our home, that I knew nothing about the shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The transfers of funds to accounts in Brielle's name. Donovan's confident demeanor began to crack. He whispered furiously to his lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. The turning point came when Katerina presented records showing that the prized Ferrari 250 GTO in Donovan's collection, valued at over $50 million, had been purchased entirely with funds from my family trust, Your Honor. She continued. This vehicle, the crown jewel of Mr. Hawthorne's collection, was purchased with money that legally belonged to my client. Mr. Hawthorne used Mrs. Hawthorne's inheritance without proper documentation, putting the title in his name only. The judge's expression grew stern as he reviewed the evidence. Mr. Sterling, how do you explain these transactions? Donovan's lawyer stammered through a weak explanation about marital assets and gift intentions, but the damage was done. The proceedings continued for several days. Each day brought new revelations about Donovan's deception. Katerina even presented evidence of his embezzlement from the company, using corporate funds for personal expenses related to his affair. On the final day, both sides presented their closing arguments. Maxwell Sterling tried to paint me as a vindictive ex-wife, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge's ruling exceeded my wildest expectations. Mr. Hawthorne, the evidence clearly shows a pattern of financial misconduct and attempted fraud. Your attempts to hide assets and mislead this court are deeply troubling. I hereby order that the entire car collection be transferred to Mrs. Hawthorne. As evidence shows, it was largely funded by her inheritance and efforts. The Beverly Hills property will also be awarded to Mrs. Hawthorne, free and clear of the mortgage that Mr. Hawthorne took out without her knowledge. Furthermore, due to the egregious nature of Mr. Hawthorne's financial misconduct, I am awarding Mrs. Hawthorne 75% of all other marital assets, including investment properties and business interests. Donovan's face went white. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Those cars are my life's work. The judge's response was cutting. Mr. Hawthorne, the evidence suggests they are your wife's life work, funded by her money, and managed through her efforts. Your attempt to claim sole ownership while planning to leave her with nothing is precisely why this ruling is necessary. The aftermath was swift and dramatic. Donovan had to watch as each vehicle in his precious collection was cataloged and transferred to my name. The Ferrari, the Bugatti, the vintage Porsches, all now belonged to me. The day the cars were transferred was surreal. Donovan had to be present to hand over the keys and documentation. His hands shook as he signed each transfer document. You can't do this, he pleaded as the Ferrari was loaded onto a transport truck. These cars are my life's work. Miriam, please, you don't even care about cars. No, Donovan, I replied calmly. They're the result of our life's work. The difference is, I remember that and you forgot. And you're wrong. I do care about cars. I cared enough to help you build this collection when everyone thought you were crazy for spending so much on old vehicles. As movers began packing up the penthouse, Donovan's carefully constructed new life began to crumble. Brielle, who had been notably absent during the court proceedings, made her position clear soon after. I heard from mutual friends that she ended their relationship the moment she learned about the ruling. Apparently, a 63-year-old man with drastically reduced wealth and significant legal troubles wasn't quite as attractive as she had initially thought. She just disappeared. Sarah told me over lunch. Blocked his number, moved out of the penthouse. Everything. He's devastated. I felt no satisfaction in his pain. If anything, I felt sad for him. He had destroyed our family, our history, our future. For what? A fantasy that evaporated the moment his bank account diminished. The news of our divorce spread quickly through our social circle. Many of our friends who had initially tried to remain neutral were shocked by the revelations about Donovan's behavior. At the country club where Donovan and Brielle had planned to have their wedding, I was approached by Margaret Wilson, the club president. Miriam, we had no idea, she said, grasping my hands. If we had known what he was planning, we never would have accepted that booking. Please know that you will always be welcome here. I sold most of the collection at auction, keeping only the Ferrari 250 GTO and a 1967 Mustang that had been our first classic car purchase. The auction was a major event in the collector car world, with buyers from around the globe competing for the rare vehicles. The proceeds were staggering, over $200 million in total. But for me, it wasn't about the money. It was about justice and new beginnings. With the funds, I established the Second Chances Scholarship Fund for women over 50 who wanted to return to education. Having sacrificed my own career, ambitions for my marriage, I wanted to help other women reclaim their dreams. I moved to a beautiful beach house in Malibu, where I could hear the ocean waves and feel truly at peace for the first time in years. The house was modern and filled with light, nothing like the traditional Beverly Hills mansion that had been more Donovan's taste than mine. But the most surprising development was my decision to learn race car driving. The idea came to me one morning as I sat in the Ferrari, just admiring its lines. This car, which had symbolized Donovan's success and then his betrayal, deserved to be driven, not just displayed. Are you serious, Mom? Celeste asked when I told her about my plans. Absolutely, I replied. I've spent decades admiring these cars from the passenger seat. It's time I took the wheel. At 62, I enrolled in a professional driving school. My instructor, a former Formula One driver named Marco, was initially skeptical but quickly became impressed with my determination. Most people think racing is about youth and reflexes, he told me after a particularly challenging session, but it's really about patience, strategy, and understanding your machine. You have all of those qualities. The first time I took the Ferrari onto a real racetrack, I was terrified, but as I pushed the accelerator and felt the engine respond, something clicked. This wasn't just about driving fast. It was about control, precision, and courage. 6 months after my divorce, I participated in my first vintage car race driving the Ferrari that had once been Donovan's most prized possession. As I crossed the finish line, I felt a sense of accomplishment that transcended the race itself. I had reclaimed not just the cars, but my own identity. The irony wasn't lost on me. Donovan had called me too old. Yet here I was, embracing new challenges and adventures, while he struggled to rebuild his life. I heard through mutual friends that he had tried to reconcile with several age-appropriate women, but his reputation preceded him. He's a pariah now, Sarah informed me. Everyone knows what he did. He can't get a date. His business is struggling, and he's living in a rental apartment in the valley. I took no pleasure in his downfall. If anything, I hoped he would learn from this experience and become a better person. My relationship with my children grew stronger than ever. They were proud of how I had handled the divorce and my newfound independence. You're an inspiration, Mom. Celeste told me during one of our weekly lunches, you didn't just survive, you thrived, and you're showing other women that it's never too late to start over. Jasper, who had been so angry at first, found peace in seeing me happy. Dad lost more than money and cars. He said he lost the best thing that ever happened to him, and he doesn't even realize it. About a year after the divorce, I attended a charity gala for my scholarship fund. The event was held at the Peterson Automotive Museum, and I had loaned them the Ferrari for display. Halfway through the evening, I was surprised to see Donovan enter the room. He looked older, diminished somehow. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by a weariness that made him appear far older than his 64 years. Our eyes met across the room, and after a moment's hesitation, he approached. "Miriam," he said quietly, "you look wonderful." "Thank you," I replied, maintaining my composure. He glanced at the Ferrari displayed prominently with a plaque describing its history and my ownership. "I heard about the scholarship fund. It's a wonderful thing you're doing." We talked for a few minutes, polite surface-level conversation. Then as he was about to leave, he turned back. "I was a fool," he said, his voice barely audible. "I threw away everything that mattered for an illusion. You were never the old one, Miriam." I was, old in my thinking, old in my values. I felt no satisfaction in his remorse, only a sense of closure. We all make choices. Donovan. The important thing is learning from them. As I watched him walk away, I realized I had truly moved on. The anger was gone, replaced by something like pity, mixed with indifference. Later that evening, I met Lorenzo, an Italian vintage car collector who had flown in for the auction. We bonded over our shared passion for classic automobiles and the stories they tell. "That Ferrari," he said, gesturing to my car. "It has a soul, and now it has found its true owner." We began seeing each other regularly, taking long drives along the coast, attending car shows across Europe, and sharing stories of our lives. Unlike Donovan, Lorenzo appreciated the woman I had become through my experiences. "In Italy, we have a saying," he told me one evening as we watched the sunset from my deck. "Good wine gets better with time, so do remarkable women." Today, at 63, I'm living a life I never could have imagined during those dark days after discovering Donovan's betrayal. I've traveled to car shows across Europe, made new friends in the racing community, and found love again. This time with someone who values me for who I am, not who I used to be. The scholarship fund has helped dozens of women return to school, and I regularly speak at events about financial independence and starting over after divorce. My message is always the same. It's never too late to reclaim your life. Last month, I competed in the Mille Miglia, a 1,000-mile vintage car race through Italy. As I navigated the winding roads in the Ferrari, with Lorenzo cheering me on at checkpoints, I thought about how far I'd come. The man who had called me too old had actually given me the greatest gift, the push I needed to discover my own strength. The truth is, age didn't diminish my value. It enhanced it. Every year, every experience, every challenge had made me who I am. Donovan's inability to see that was his loss, not mine. Recently, I received an email from Brielle. She apologized for her role in breaking up my marriage and admitted that she had been attracted to Donovan's wealth and status, not the man himself. She wrote that watching my journey had inspired her to reevaluate her own life choices. I wrote back, encouraging her to find her own path and value herself for more than her youth and beauty. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them. The beach house in Malibu has become my sanctuary. I wake up to the sound of waves, practice yoga on the deck, and spend my days working on the scholarship fundraising, vintage cars, and enjoying life with Lorenzo. My children visit often, sometimes bringing their own partners. Jasper recently got engaged to a wonderful woman who shares his passion for environmental law. Celeste's tech startup just secured major funding and is expanding globally. During a recent family dinner, Celeste raised her glass. "To Mom," she said, "who taught us that when one door closes, you don't just open another, you build a whole new house." The Ferrari 250. GTO now has a place of honor in my climate-controlled garage, but it's not a trophy or a symbol of revenge. Every time I take it out for a drive, I'm reminded that our greatest challenges often lead to our greatest triumphs. Looking back, I realize that Donovan's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a better one. He thought I was too old to start over, too set in my ways to change. He was wrong on both counts. Age isn't a limitation, it's a qualification. It means you've survived, learned, and grown. It means you have the wisdom to recognize your worth and the courage to demand respect. If you're going through something similar, remember this: your value doesn't decrease with age. Like a classic car, you become more precious with time, your experiences adding character and worth. Don't let anyone tell you you're too old for anything. You're not too old, you're just getting started. If you've enjoyed this story, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment below about your own experiences with starting over. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of triumph over adversity. Remember, the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living authentically fully and on your own terms. Your age isn't a limitation, it's your superpower.